Chairman of Patani Local Government in Delta State. We'll take a short break now. Head to Head returns shortly. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. It's still Head to Head on Silverbird Television, and my guest is still Dr. Chris Ekio, who is the transitional chairman of Patani Local Government area. Local government is a grassroots government. Do you believe that the Nigerian people have had a fair deal with this form of administration over the years?
I think that the intent of local government administration it's been defeated in the contemporary times now. Maybe when it was formed and the laws establishing local government was made, the purpose was to serve a small minority of people. But most local governments that were created then are beginning to be more cosmopolitan now. And therefore, there's a need to review some of the local government laws to allow for certain capacities for local government to do certain things by itself. Now, and that's what brings about the cry and you and cry for autonomy. It's very key. The autonomy that people are crying at, those of financial autonomy, very importantly. Not because, for instance, people take the monies away. No right-thinking governor will seize an allocation of any local government because he knows the implication. But because there are certain index of governance that you should be able to take charge of to check your finances that you're not in control of. The Unified Local Government Service, for instance, they transfer to you anybody that you probably don't need and you have to pay the person's salary. The teachers' arrangement, for instance, you pay salaries of teachers that you don't control. So if you have 1 million teachers, they have to take that money from source and pay them, and the rest is what you have. Now, it creates a burden for infrastructure and for social service delivery. Then most local governments, as I can speak to you, is overburdened by civil servants that you don't need. But that's the only way you can employ people. There is no industry in the country. There is no alternative to jobs creation. Government is the biggest employer. And for the local people, the local government is the biggest employer. And except we industrialize our country, that desire to use local government to develop grassroots communities will not be achieved, because the only thing it does
at this
now,
point, in a nutshell, what you're saying is that
local government is only able to absorb people for employment. You can't really build a road in the local government except you're in a high urban center where you have serious IGR. You can't build it. You can't build a 1 kilometer road.
What's the IGR of Patani, for instance?
It's a 0 naira IGR. When I came, we have been able to share it up from 0 to about 1 million naira now, and we're working hard in that. But
there's 1 million naira in a year or in a month?
In a year. When I came, the people have no job. You ask us to take tax on canoes and bicycles, and we can't tax any motorized thing. We can't, people, you tell them about tenement rates, they can't pay, they have no homes. They are coming to the local government for even food, and you ask them to pay tax. The old man was going to put her canoe in the waterside and go to look for fish. You come and take tax from that one. When you are looking for how to buy fish and distribute in the place, so you can't raise money.
In a nutshell, do you also know that if monies are not coming from the Federation account, you probably wouldn't have any money to run the council?
That's exactly what we're saying. That we have a gratifying system in the current arrangement that everybody, including states, the IGR of states can't pay the state workers, I can tell you that. You can't even pay teacher's salary, let alone the largest. So once there is no oil to redistribute the nation's wealth, most of the states will not be
How
viable.
does this make you feel as an administrator now? How do you feel? How do you think, even with your the small microcosms of the space that you have, you can make a difference? You can shore up, for instance, the IGR.
That is not without a price, Victor. What we have done is, when I came, I noticed that there is an index of bloated recurrent expenditure. Travels by management staff, chairman, attending meetings, allowances, costs for running generators, grants, some of the grants not necessary. And then what I did was to nip it in the bud. Cut down on allowances, cut down on any other area that I calculated as wastages, and then targeted small, possible, achievable projects that are people-oriented. Electricity, water, drains, health, education, and keep it small and set a mileage for myself with a milestone for the first 3 months, the second 3 months, and that was when I decided to give a scorecard and a transparency talk about what we're doing. We have another 3 months in the kitty, and what I think we're doing is not without a price. For instance, sometimes we have to sacrifice our empresses to get the results. But when we have a scorecard and a transparency talk about what we're doing, we have another 3 months in the kitty, and what I think we're doing is not without a price. For instance, sometimes we have to sacrifice our empresses to get the results. to deliver to the people, because I keep arguing that if we take our allowances and we did not travel, why do we want to take Empress?
Most people in authority actually give contracts that they can get kickbacks from. How much kickback do you get for the contracts that you award?
Right now, it's the biggest problem that I have, because in the 25 LGs of Delta State, and indeed in Delta State, if you check my contract values, which I've given out, I say there are small, quick wins. You can't ask a kickback from me. For instance, if I tell someone to sink a monopump or an overhead tank and a borehole with a motorized generator for about 650,000, he barely would make 100,000 profit. So how are you going to get him? So most of this job.
But then again, are you saying that if the monies were bigger, you probably would be taking kickbacks?
What I'm trying to say is,
or you ask
what
for
I'm trying
kickbacks?
to say is I've tried to not be very thorough and sincere with the process, such that even the contractor will not be thinking of bringing a kickback. From the way I'm discussing with you, you will know that this man is not ready for kick in and kick out. I better go and do my job. And I go to project site. If it's in the river and reef, about $1 million, because you have to move materials. If it's the town, it's less than that. And then clearly you are seeing that we're just trying to do so that locals can quickly get back, recover from the flood. So I live here.
You mean that you've never had a kickback? That
no,
somebody has
here.
not appreciated you for giving him a contract?
I live here. And before I became chairman, I provide water for the community from my own cost. I give people money from my pocket, from my add-in money.
Exactly my point, which is this is supposed to be a payback time for you.
I tell you
time for you to recoup what you have spent so far.
I feel fulfilled. Now I don't have to give from my pocket, so my own money is saved. I don't have to run my generator to supply water, because now there's electricity, people get water from their home. So my money I spend on diesel,
whatever you were doing was not because you really wanted to do it.
No. What I was doing, now I feel a little bit relieved, because it's not telling no more on my private finances. Government now takes the responsibility. I was doing those things because government failed ab initio to provide. Now that I'm in government and we're using government position to provide for everybody, the pressure on my personal finances are saved. I used to drive my personal car, fuel it, maintain it. Today, the government fuels my car. It's car that is given to me officially. That cost is saved to me. If I stay in my house anyway, because the local government has no house for the chairman. Ordinarily, the wear and tear of my house would have been reduced if I was staying in the government property. Now, I used to run my own diesel, paid bills, month to month. Government now pays that for me. My money is saved. So there is no way you tell me you are in government, you're not benefiting. Some of the bills you would have paid privately, the government pays. And if you are sincere to yourself, that is a savings in itself. It is different from when someone comes here and say, I think sitting here, I've got a number of persons have come to say, Chairman, I bought this fish, I bought this plantain. They send it to my kitchen. I said, well, thank you. Now, we do some direct labor. Even in the direct labor, I have insisted that it must be the cheapest and the most affordable price for the best that we can get. So we set the standard, we go to the market rates, and my engineer had advised and had assured me that our BOQs can be about the lowest in the state. And I have maintained that profile. And I've said you should recommend those profiles as the going rates. And what we are doing is not because we do not know that contracts can be inflated, but we have too much to do with too little resources.
Now, talking to people in Patani, for instance, at the town hall that you organized, do you think that the people actually have the understanding that these monies that get to you are barely enough, especially when they don't have jobs, especially when they're looking at how they can go into some form of vocation or another? What are you really thinking about the correcting this perception, especially with the Patani people to whom you owe a duty?
You can see that we're training about 157 on vocational skills and self-development as a template. And we intend to use that to build a critical mass of people to make people begin to think differently, that you don't have to depend on government for everything. We barely have 3 million, sometimes 5 million after payment of salaries. Sometimes we barely have 2 million after payment of salaries to even run the council. So in such month, there will be no project. 2, I don't want to give jobs that I can't pay for before I leave. So I've taken it one thing at a time. And that was why I decided that the people need to have the cards bare, so they don't expect too much from too little. And this is the first time in the history of the creation of local government, a local government chairman is telling the people indices of inflow and outflow and what the outflow is going to. And these things are verifiable. You can go to the council and see the staff list, nominal roll, you can see the projects we're doing, you can cost them on the current going market rate and put it pari passu with our cost in council. And you will see that apart from the value-added tax, withholding tax, and retention that is added up to the contract values, it's going to be about the same thing anybody would have done the job.
Now, rural development and agriculture, what are you doing, especially if this is going to be something that could shore up the IGR of your local government?
Yeah, food security is very key. Only recently I'm talking with Mad Lion in Kaduna for supplies of yam tubers, onions and all that for consumption, because we are still yet, this season the planting was not too good because first there were no cassava stems. By the time the cassava stems arrived for planting, the flood season was already here. At this time of the year in my place we're harvesting, you can't plant. So I'm beginning to see a situation where we need food security. I've made arrangement for now supply of yam, rice, onion, pepper, okra, with another young entrepreneur in Kaduna, Mad Lion, an activist like myself, for discount rates. I'm just about to pay those monies and he will deliver those items to prepare the people because they didn't plant. But beyond that, the local government was able to acquire very high ground where we are producing seedlings, cassava seedlings now, in the hope that once this flood does not ravage us, as soon as we're returning, people can have those seedlings to plant for the next season. We have also set up a snailry. If you travel on the east-west road, you see people are doing big business with either fried snails on the road or raw snails being sold, and there's a delicacy in this part of the world, and the prices are quite good. We're thinking of producing so we can give out to vendors at cheap rates where they can sell back in the public. So the infrastructure is in place. We've not put in the snails, but we're building a very massive one. Well, we also noticed that birds do well, but for the flood that killed a lot of birds from the private entrepreneurs, and they're yet to recover. So what we want to do, we're getting point of lay beds very soon. Once we build up a massive poultry, point of lay beds, about 10,000 of those.
How soon are these things coming?
As soon as monies are available, because we have done the arrangements. If we're buying 10,000 beds, we need close to at 1,000 a bed. You know what that will cost us. So we're planning on that. So once we buy them, we should be looking at producing as much as 5,000 to 8,000 eggs daily for the market, local consumption and beyond for IGR. And then once we start producing, we're also able to distribute some of those beds to those who lost their beds during the flood, maybe say 300 beds, 200 beds, a couple of poultry farmers, so they can pick up their piece together. That would have been done since about April, but really they've been dwindling in the inflow of the council's fund from about March till date, and we cannot work with what we don't have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chris Ekio, for granting us this interview. It's been a pleasure talking here to the transitional chairman of Patani local government in Delta State, Dr. Chris Ekio. Head to head, it's always here for you, and you can watch it live on Silverbird Television. You can always reach us at www.silverbirdtv.com/live. My name is Victor Ayara. Bye-bye.
I have constitutional right to contest for the position of government. When I'm not said, you can say that to all Nigerians.